Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about fragrance in soap making. This is a question that was given to us on the comments of one of our videos. So if you have a question later on, know that that's a great way to get your question answered. And we thought this would make a great video by itself. And the question was, how do you choose a fragrance when you are looking to make soap, to do cold process soap making? And there are a lot of variables when it comes to choosing a fragrance. And some fragrances work extremely well, some fragrances not so much. And we want to go over with you today what you need to know to be able to choose a fragrance for your cold process soap project. So grab your coffee and let's dive into how to choose a fragrance for your soap making. Do be careful, because a couple little fragrance purchases can turn into a whole lot. When you're choosing a fragrance to go into your soap making, the very first thing that you need to be aware of is you must make sure that the fragrance is intended for soap making or intended for cold process soap making. There are a bunch of different fragrances out there and they're intended for different things. So make sure that the one you're looking at is intended for soap making, and it should say it right on the bottle, either for soap making, for CP or cold process soap making. Any of those are fine. But there are some things to watch out for. Some fragrances might be intended for soap making, but not for cold process soap making. They might be intended for melt and pour or other things. And those then are not going to behave the same in a cold process soap making project. Also, there are fragrances for candles. There are fragrances intended for colognes or perfumes. There are fragrances that are just supposed to go in the little jar with the little sticks that stick up. Any of those are not all fragrances are equal. So you have to make sure that you have a fragrance that is intended for soap making and intended for cold process soap making also. And it should say that right on the bottle. However, even if you have a bottle that says right on it for soap making, even for cold process soap making, that doesn't mean that it is going to behave well. And here's how you can kind of get started with that. When you are just getting started with your soap making, or if you're just choosing a fragrance maybe for the first time and you're feeling a little weird about it, make sure that you are choosing from a company where providing soap making supplies to people just like you is their primary business. So you're going to go to brambleberry.com. You're going to go to bulkapothecary.com, midwestfragrance.com, candlescience.com. All of these, this is what they do. They provide supplies to makers just like you who are either doing soap or candles or whatever. Make sure you're dealing with a company like that. Hobby Lobby, Michaels, any craft store, like a big craft store where they do all kinds of stuff, home decor and games and toys and fabric and all the things. That's not their primary business. And when you're purchasing a fragrance from them, there's like a less than 50% chance that you're going to find one that will actually work in cold process soap making. Most likely you're going to find one that's going to cause your soap to behave badly. It's going to cause the soap to seize. And this is kind of how you can tell whether you got a high quality fragrance or not. When you have your soap batter mixed together, you have your oils and your lye and your liquid in there, and you've stirred it and it's coming to trace. When you add the fragrance, if it goes to Play-Doh instantly, that is not that fragrance. It was the fragrance's fault. You've got one that's not intended for what you're doing. You have to throw the fragrance away. Like that isn't going to work for what you're wanting to do. There are other things you can do with it, but it's not going to work in your soap making project. So that's what you need to watch for. Make sure you're buying from a company where this is their primary business. They provide supplies to people just like you, and then you have a much better chance of that soap or of that fragrance working well in your soap making project. If it causes your batter to seize, like I just described, where it goes from liquid to Play-Doh, that fragrance is not going to work. and or if it causes it to rice. And that just means like there's just like little clumps all through the batter that you can't smooth out. That also is the fragrance's fault. So if you've had that happen in your soap making project, probably the culprit is your fragrance. Get a different fragrance from a reputable company where this is what they do, and you will have a lot better success in your soap making with that. So remember, stay away from the Michaels and the Hobby Lobbies for this. Eventually, you may be able to go back to them and try out some of what they've got. But when you're first getting started and you don't know whether it's the fragrance's fault or if you did something wrong, eliminate that variable. Get something from someone who you know this is what the fragrance is intended for, because they do this as their primary job, and you'll at least eliminate that variable in your first batches of soap. A second thing to watch for in choosing your fragrance for your soap making is to make sure that the fragrance is phthalate-free. Now, this is a funny word. It's spelled PHTHA. LATE. It's a funny chemistry word there, but make sure, or chemical name, but make sure it's phthalate free. These are chemicals that can be present in fragrance that have health concerns attached to them. I have found personally that if I don't get fragrances that are phthalate free, they give me a headache. And in our house, we make a lot of soap. There's a lot of fragrance, and it doesn't bother me unless I've got one of those lurking in there that I didn't catch. So make sure that and it'll say right on the description of the fragrance, especially if you're ordering it online, is it phthalate free? And those will be the best scents to use in your soaping project. Now we get to the fun part of how do you choose a scent? There are so many of them out there. How do you decide? And a lot of this really is personal preference. There isn't a rule for what scents are soap and what scents are something else. You can just kind of use your creativity with this. But some things to consider are, first of all, the strength of the scent. Like, is this a very bold scent, a very strong scent, or is it more subtle and subdued? And then again, that's a personal preference thing. But I like to have a variety of strengths in my collection of soaps that I'm going to offer for sale, because what appeals to me as far as the strength of the scent, there's going to be people who want it stronger, and there's going to be people who, that even what I had was too much. So I want to have a variety so that I can appeal to all different people. A variety of strengths, also a variety of scent types. So you'll want to have some, like a sweet cinnamon baking kind of smells. You're going to want to have some floral, some fruity, some masculine scents, some very like earthy essential oil kind of scents. You want to have a variety of all of these things. And when it comes to that, think about what appeals to you. What fragrances do you like? As you're looking online on this website, like what intrigues you? What names just catch your eye and make you go, oh, I think I'd kind of like to try that. The trick about choosing a fragrance, especially if you're dealing on a website, is you can't smell it. You're kind of ordering blind. So it's really great to, and sometimes these websites will have a sale on their trial size ones. They're just little bitty bottles. Order a variety of those so that you can smell it and see which ones really excite you and ones that maybe you would like to order a little bit more of later. So when it comes to scent, get a variety of things, or maybe choose just two and see which ones you like. Just start to get some experience in choosing fragrances and just finding out what you like, and then later on what appeals to your customers as well. One more thing you're going to need to be aware of when you're dealing with fragrance in your soap making is that there are recommended safe usage amounts for your soap. You don't get to just choose. You have to know a little bit about your fragrance to know that you're using an appropriate amount of fragrance that will be safe to use, because this is a skincare product. So I'm going to show you where to find this number and find this percentage amount, and then we're going to tell you what to do with that number. But first, let's work on finding that. So how do you find the recommended usage allowance percentage on any given fragrance? We are at brambleberry.com. This is a soap supply business where that's what they do. So this is a great place to go and kind of start your hunting for your fragrances for your soap project. But we're going to check out one of their fragrances so that you can see the percentage number, what it is, and how to find it. So we're going to check out their Wildflower Breeze. This is right at the front of their website right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and click the button so that we can see their page about this fragrance. Now here's all the different sizes and what it costs and things. You can add it to your cart. But if you scroll down, we're going to look for some of the documents on this fragrance. And what I'm looking for is the IFRA 50 report. This is the International Fragrance Association, their report on this fragrance and just some of the stuff that you need to know. So go ahead and click on this report, and that will bring up this document about the Wildflower Breeze fragrance oil. You can see it, it says it right there on the report. Now, if you scroll down, we're looking for category 9. And category 9, if you look at that, they don't give us the descriptions here. Let me see if I can click on that. Nope. Category 9 is for bar soap generally. And I believe they have a different document where you can see what that is. Let's go back and look a second. Hang on. Usually it's right there. Anyway, you're looking for category 9. On some other websites, they also have a report that describes what the different categories are. Category 1 is lip balm typically. Another one is lotion or different things. It just depends on how you're going to use the product. And category 9 is wash off products. So you're going to use it on your skin, but you're going to wash it off then in the end. So category 9, and if you look over here, the percentage, say the safe usage percentage, there we go, is 5.01. This is the number you're looking for in regards to whatever fragrance. It tells you how much fragrance you can use and what is a safe level to use in this wash off project. So let's talk now about what are you going to do with this number? How do you interpret that into how much fragrance can I use in my project? Okay, now, what do you do with that number? We found on Brambleberry's website that the Wildflower Breeze IFRA safe usage percentage was 5.01%. And what do you do with that number now? Basically, what this number is saying is that the fragrance oil that you're using, Wildflower Breeze in this case, is safe to use on your skin up to 5% of the total weight of the batch, the total amount of ingredients in the batch. Now, I'm going to assume that we're just going to use an example here. If you are using a 3-pound mold, in our soap making membership, we most commonly use a 10-inch 3-pound loaf soap mold. So 3 pounds of soap. If that number that we found, that IFRA percentage, is between 2.5% and 5%, then that means that in this 3-pound loaf mold, or 3 pounds of soap, you can use between 1 ounce and 2 ounces of fragrance, and it will be safe. So that's what that percentage means. Now, if the percentage that you find is higher than that, and significantly higher than that, I've seen them up to 50 and, 50%. That means that fragrance is safe to use at a higher amount. Like you could use 3, 4, 5 ounces of fragrance. Now, there's a problem with that though, because number 1, that gets expensive. And number 2, you're also adding liquid to your soap batch. So although it might be safe to use 5 ounces of fragrance in this soap batch, that's going to add a lot of liquid to your soap batch, and then it's going to have a hard time setting up. You're going to have a very soft soap, or maybe it doesn't even really set up very well at all. So So to give you some guidelines here, you're looking for, like, in a 3-pound mold, probably 1 ounce is a good amount of fragrance to start with. You could go up to 2, but probably stick at 1. But if your IFRA percentage is less than 2.5%, then that means that 1 ounce of fragrance is too much. That fragrance is not safe to put that much of it in your 3-pound mold. So really what you're looking for in that document is, if you've got a fragrance where the safe usage percentage in that category 9 is less than 2.5%, then you're either going to have to reduce the amount of fragrance you use down to maybe half an ounce or even less, or just find a different fragrance. There are plenty of them out there that are safe to use at a much larger percentage. Like, you can use a larger amount and it's not going to be a problem for using in a skincare product. If you find one that's less than that, either reduce what you're, like, from 1 ounce down to, less than that, or just find a different fragrance. Those are the ones you want to watch out for, because they're not safe to use at the amount of fragrance that I feel like would give you a good amount of scent in your project. So those are some guidelines on how to choose a fragrance for your soap project. Things to watch out for: making sure that it is a fragrance that's intended for soap making, making sure that you're buying it from a place that does their primary job is providing soap supplies to people just like you. It is worth the extra money to pay a few extra dollars for a high quality, actually intended for soap fragrance than to buy a cheaper one at a different store and now find out that you can't use that fragrance at all. So now that money is wasted. Plus, you've wrecked a batch of soap, and now the oils and other things are also lost. So it is worth the extra money to make sure you've got a fragrance that's going to behave well and that's going to serve well and make amazing soap bars for you to share with your people. So make sure it's for soap making. Make sure it's coming from a reputable company. Phthalate-free. That's my recommendation. That isn't a rule for having your soap work well, but it's just my recommendation for getting scents in there that are going to be also health friendly as well. Choosing your scent, that is kind of personal preference, but also having some variety in there really will serve you well as well. And then knowing what that IFRA percentage number is for your fragrance, and mostly making sure that it's not too low, that it's not below 2.5%, that in our example, in a 3-pound batch, you can use 1 ounce of fragrance and still be okay, having it be within a safe usage there. So those are just some tips on how to choose a fragrance. Now, I would really encourage you to go to the website, go to brambleberry.com, go to Bulk Apothecary, go to your fragrance website of choice, and just hunt around. Look for that IFRA document. Find your percentage. Maybe it's a fragrance you've used before. See what it is and see how your fragrances match up against what we've been talking about today. So I hope this helps you. Go do some exploring. It's a lot of fun to check out the different fragrances now that you know some of the things you're looking for, and just seeing what you find on your favorite fragrances.